your sins, but he is forgiving. Repent before it's too late. God gave his only begotten Son, so that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
The time has come for you to seek new levels of reality. Your ego and the self-game are about to cease. You are about to be set face to face with the clear light. You are about to experience it in its reality. In the ego-free state, wherein all things are like the void and cloudless sky, and the naked, spotless intellect is like a transparent vacuum. At this moment, know yourself and abide in that state. That which is called ego death is coming to you. Remember, this is now the hour of death and rebirth. Take advantage of this temporary death to obtain the perfect state, enlightenment. Concentrate on the unity of all living beings. Hold on to the clear light. Use it to attain understanding and love.
One of his students asked Buddha, "Are you the Messiah?" "No," answered Buddha. "Then are you the healer?" "No," Buddha replied. "Then are you the teacher?" the student persisted. "No, I am not a teacher." "Then what are you?" asked the student, exasperated. "I am awake."
When you feel it, a sort of anticipation growing stronger and stronger, another way of putting it is time is speeding up. I've heard that discussion for a while now. I know most people have felt it at some point, maybe while watching the news or perhaps something in their own lives. Something big is about to happen. You can see signs of it all over the world. Revolutions rapidly spreading across the Middle East, protests occurring in America and Europe. Earthquakes are devastating the world, like in Japan, Myanmar, and Greece. The global economy is failing so hard that it looks like we're looking forward into a global recession, the likes of which makes the 30s look like a cakewalk. Not to mention that if global warming doesn't put our planet into an ice age, we're gonna kill ourselves from overpopulation for sure. And using the rate of doubling, we definitely don't have the resources to survive the way we are for maybe a little over 10 years. Yet, despite all of these things, we're about to learn something amazing. It's something that will transform the Earth into something completely different, something incredible and beautiful. Many people across the globe have learned about this, and they've applied it to themselves and witnessed marvelous changes. Others have dedicated their lives to talking about it, to teaching it. I'm someone who's still exploring it, and I want more people to talk about it with.
Had the chance to communicate one general idea to the American public, what would it be?
I guess it would be understanding and communication between the different age brackets, which is no such thing about age brackets anyway, not in my mind, because a person is not actually old in numbers of years, but how many miles he's traveled, how he keeps his mind active and creative. And I guess that'll be one general idea. There's millions of them, though.
Allow your thoughts to dissolve.
Perception is based on what I think I see.
Relax your mind.
And what I think I embrace.
Release the tension.
Allow your mind to slip away.
Let go of fear.
There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind. There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind. There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind.
Silence your internal dialogue.
Allowing forth the freedom experience to engage.
Release your mental chatter.
You are more than your physical body.
Allow your ego
move into pure presence.
You are more
see the vision of naked awareness.
Move into pure awareness.
Infinity is waiting. Perception is yours.
Feel the intensity of a silent mind.
You are gaining access to the infinite.
Feel the intensity of presence.
Your consciousness has awakened. You are experiencing the reality of what is. Move into the present. There is no past. There is no future. There is only now.
There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind. There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind. There exists no phenomenon other than what arises from the mind.
The human brain is a network of approximately 100 billion neurons. Different experiences create different neural connections which bring about different emotions. And depending on which neurons get stimulated, certain connections become stronger and more efficient, while others may become weaker. This is what's called neuroplasticity. Someone who trains to be a musician will create stronger neural connections that link the two hemispheres of the brain in order to be musically creative.
I don't know, I really feel like turning people on, quite naturally, on some kind of, at least entertainment, without being false about it, without being a superficial clown or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And like if they don't respond, well then I'll just play for myself, and for the ones that will listen. If they do respond, well then this gives me more energy to work out, It's another way of communication and trying to make harmony amongst the people enjoying what we're trying to get across, Harmony is part of the first one too, anyway.
Virtually any sort of talent or skill can be created through training. Rudiger Gamm, who was a self-admitted hopeless student, used to fail at basic math, and went on to train his abilities and became a famous human calculator, capable of performing extremely complex mathematics. Rationality and emotional resilience work the same way. These are neural connections that can be strengthened. Whatever you are doing at any time, you are physically modifying your brain to become better at it. Since this is such a foundational mechanism of the brain, being self-aware can greatly enrich our life experience.
Mind, body, spirit. This is the sacred trinity that allows us life on Earth. Without even one of these three, we could not function properly. Yet, in today's world, we only really truly understand two of the three. We have scientifically mapped the mind and the body. We understand next to every aspect about each of them. Yet, what do we really know about the spirit, the soul? What is it? Where does it come from? For centuries, religions have been the primary source for answers pertaining to the soul, but they're not concrete. Many different religions have a different answer and ideas about how things work on this level. Recently, however, a discovery was made, which led to new discoveries and further discoveries. These incredible insights went largely unnoticed by the global community, and while governments and secret services of the world acknowledged them, it wasn't something that really got to the masses. Today, this information is still slowly coming out, and I'm gonna share it with you. In the world of science, what do we really know about thoughts? We know we can measure them. By hooking up scanners, you can measure the frequency that are emitted when you think them. They're measurable, yet there isn't anywhere specific in the brain that holds them. Is it possible that you create your thoughts outside your mind? Maybe not. But is it possible that you create your thoughts into the external world from your mind? This is what we're going to talk about today.
For years, I have truly tried to live in accordance with your teachings, I said. Obviously, I have not done well. How can I do better now? You think and talk too much. You must stop talking to yourself. What do you mean? You talk to yourself too much. You're not unique at that. Every one of us does that. We carry on an internal talk. In fact, we maintain our world with our internal talk. How do we do that? We renew it. We kindle it with life. We uphold it with our internal talk. Not only that, but we also choose our paths as we talk to ourselves. Thus we repeat the same choices over and over until the day we die, because we keep on repeating the same internal talk over and over until the day we die. The warrior is aware of this and strives to stop his talking.
Quantum physics is a very bizarre business. We talk about time in quantum physics, but we don't speak about it the same way we speak about locations of objects in space. When we talk about locations of objects in time, it has a very different sense. Let me explain. When we speak about locations of objects in space, we're talking about things which are observable, measurable. Time is one of those elusive kinds of things that is never observable. There's no observational operation which measures time. When you look at your wrist and measure the clock ticking, what are you measuring? You're actually measuring movement. You're not really measuring time at all. So there's no operational definition in quantum physics for time. So what is time in quantum physics? It's certainly present. We speak about things changing in time. Well, time is a kind of a yardstick. And it's not a yardstick in which real time is passing. It's a yardstick of possible time. So when we speak about time in quantum physics, we are on the edge of speaking about mythos time, not time, not real time, but time of possibilities. In other words, we speak about how things could possibly change in time, but not how things are actually changing in time, because the time element is not really present.
You're giving me the sense that all of our science, all of our quantum physics is like this little ball that exists in this much larger realm of mythos, and what you're doing is sort of punching through the walls somehow and getting out into that larger world and then looking back at science.
Exactly. Quantum physics is a very small stepping stone in a huge pond. And where the next stepping stone is, well, there's water in between. I mean, I don't know where it is. So all I have to do is jump out into other ways of experiencing the world, and then see if I can look back to where I came from and see if there's a tie in a relationship. And that's what I always will be doing. I mean, I'm not just interested in staying on the same stone and looking around. I really want to get to another stone in the pond and see if I can look back to what quantum physics is saying and see, well, God, it's a part of the truth, but it ain't the whole truth. We're still missing something. And that, I think, is what I'm here to do. That's my job. That's my role.
You know what's coming to me, Fred? I want to say to you, you're weird, and I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Yes. Well, I don't really see myself as being weird. I see myself as being human. Very much a human being. I think I feel more of myself as a human being now than I ever have felt being a student, growing up, whatever. I finally sense myself as part of humanity. And that's something I never had before. I always saw myself as above it somehow, or superior to it in some way because of my intellect. Now I don't feel that way. Now I see that there are other ways of seeing things that are very enriching to my life. And even when I hang out with people or friends or whatever and share this with other people, it seems to enrich their lives too. And for me, that's very, very important. I would say that rather than weird, I would say I'm alive. I am of the Weirdian way. The way of weird is a way of seeing, a way of being that first came into being during the time that Anglo-Saxon shamanhood and so-called witchcraft was going on in probably the primeval forests of Germany.
At first, when we had our first microscopes, when we saw cells, we thought, oh my God, those are so small. They gotta be the smallest thing the universe does. And then we found that those cells were made out of atoms. And the atoms are so small. We thought, oh, those are gotta be the God particles. Those are the smallest thing the universe does. And then we found that those atoms have nuclei in the middle, protons, neutrons. Those are teeny, weeny particles compared to the size of the atom. The universe goes all the way down to that size and then stops and says, okay, that's small enough, I'm not doing anything smaller. However, then we found quarks and so on. And at this point, we're building accelerators that are enormous, an extraordinary device that accelerates particles at faster and faster rates to get smaller and smaller particles, thinking every time that we're going to find this fundamental particle that can no longer be divided. However, every time some physicist somewhere write a new equation saying, oh, maybe there's another energy level, and then next thing you know, we're building a larger accelerator to try to find it. And now we're looking for things that are billions of times smaller than an atom. But based on this concept that we've just learned about, we would know that this can be done to infinity, that you can always get a smaller and smaller particle if you could get a larger and larger accelerator. So what is this really telling us about the universe? I think that a more worthy exploration would be to stop looking for a fundamental particle and start looking for a fundamental pattern of division. Because if we could find a pattern in which the universe divides, then we would have the key to creation. And that could be really useful.
I think, therefore I am not. Only when the mind is silent, I am. After Dimensions, things got a little hectic. There were literally 5 different topics that opened up for me to talk about, and I didn't know which one to cover. Fortunately, I had this one saved on the back burner, so while I figure out which order to do these next ones in, we can talk about meditation. There's quite a bit going on with meditation than most people realize. The average person will tell you that meditation is simply a tool to calm you down, when in fact, that's probably the least important thing it's good for. We're going to talk a lot more about that soon, but first I want to tell you a story about Robert Monroe. Now, if you were to read his biography on Wikipedia, you'll learn that Robert Monroe was a radio broadcasting executive that was researching the effects of sound patterns on the brain and sleep learning. Then he started exploring out-of-body states of consciousness and formed his own company, the Monroe Institute. And that's about all you'll learn. Unfortunately, that's not really what he did. He learned so much more than anyone today will accept. In fact, he found out more about the nature of the universe than any modern scientist could tell you. The stuff that he has written about seeing and doing out of body is incredible. He's completely mapped out a whole nother world. You might think of him as the Marco Polo of the next world. We've explored the lands and the oceans, and now we're exploring the heavens or the dimensions of consciousness. In his book, Ultimate Journey, Robert Monroe goes to great lengths to map out the human mind, as observed from a more conscious understanding. This is what he says. As human minds, we are what we think. We are also what others think. Most of this has little to do with our physical bodies when we go below the surface. To deal with this more closely, let us create a model of the human mind as it is and operates in practice. A pragmatic model, if you like. Imagine it structured in layers, like an onion, and let us work from the in to out. At the very core is the core self. This is the original human mind, the sum of our experiences without limitation. The inner core is composed of what we have lived and consciously thought to date. The emotions and dreams we've experienced, whether we remember them or not, the pains and the pleasures, the daydreams, wishes, and hopes. This is our essence, our spirit. It is who we really are. Above that is the animal sub-self. This is the layer that is most difficult to control. This is where the filtering, discoloration, and contamination takes place. The problem is that we think we need to rely on it or else we can't remain physically human. Physiologically, it is the cluster consisting of the mammalian brain and the limbic system. Above that is the conscious mind. This layer can be identified as what you think you are. However, it is entirely different from knowing what you are. The reason for this is that only a part of the inner core is available to the conscious you. Hence, there is much distortion, as expression has to pass through the animal sub-self. The conscious mind may be wholly accurate, but some areas may give an opposite interpretation from that of your core self. Though much of this layer is deliberately hidden from others, a considerable part is expressed in your outer self. Because it is so strong, we have no choice in this. This layer is also complicated by belief systems. For many of us, the complexity becomes a maze. It is no surprise that most of us don't find a clear way out. The next outward layer is the human mind external. This is what we think others think of us. This is a grand mixture because part of it is intuitive, non-verbal communication, which gets confused with what our sensory and analytical perception tells us. This layer is constantly changing with new experience and new perception. It is also controlled heavily by cultural context. We develop these artificial and synthetic drives of motivations, which most often leads to mental and physical dysfunction. Instead of being yourself, you begin to lead a totally reactive existence, which is what many people do. If you allow this lifestyle to take over, it can be a living hell. Moving outward, the next level is the human mind role. This is like the skin, what you want others to think of you. This is fairly simple. It is the presentation of the self. Mostly, it is set by the acceptability and needs of the world around you, superimposed hopefully with waves and pulsing thrusting from your inner core. The presentation of self is careful and usually covered with a sheen of deception. In hard cases, no signs of the inner layers ever even appear, even under great stress. And finally, the outermost layer, much larger than you'd expect, is composed of others' thoughts of you. Consider yourself as existing wherever and whenever another person or being thinks of you, even only occasionally, living almost through memories, but by creating those memories, they are connecting with you, and they do exist all around you. It is because of this that most often, others' perceptions of you have very little awareness of what's in your inner core self. The disguise and filtration are in the way. Many people have a hard time connecting with their core self, their spirit. Most don't even know that it exists, though that is changing. So, moving on, let's answer the biggest question here. What is the point of meditation? Well, everyone has a different answer to this question. Early research showed that meditation was good for lowering blood pressure, lifting depression, reducing cholesterol, and making physical changes to the brain. These are all incredibly Western views about meditation. There are lots of different types of meditation, but in the traditional Buddhist sense, all of these different forms of meditation all have the same common end result, which was spiritual enlightenment. And through that comes the elimination of suffering. This elimination comes with the understanding of the unity consciousness, which we talked about in Lesson 4. Realizing the oneness of all things. See, the traditional intent of meditation is not to eliminate suffering by lowering blood cholesterol or stress, but to eliminate suffering by shifting perspective. Meditation teaches you to turn your attention away from the mundane physical and personal experiences of the world, where problems seem significant, and turn to experience life through a broader, more interconnected perspective, being one with everything. The process transcends and changes our sense of self, so that our problems seem less meaningful and less troubling. The point is not to reduce the physical cause of discomfort through improved health, but to change the importance we place on that discomfort. Maybe it's time to revisit that quote from the beginning. I think, therefore I am not. Only when the mind is silent, I am. When the mind is silent, you can connect fully with the core self, the spirit, going beyond the conscious mind and the animal sub-self, and being in the I am. Finally, let's talk about binaural beats. Binaural beats were first developed by Robert Monroe at the Monroe Institute in experiments to induce different states of consciousness and out-of-body experiences. They are essentially audio tracks that place a single tone in each ear, slightly different from the other, which actually creates a third tone in your head. One ear goes woo, and the other tone goes woo, and in your head you hear woo 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 woo. It's pretty cool. What this does, in effect, is actually change your brain frequency, putting you in a different mental state. If you Google it, you can find HemiSync, which stands for Hemisphere Synchronization. This is the Monroe Institute's brand of binaural beats, which is very professional, and they have both guided and free-flow meditations that will help you get into different states. If a regular Joe decided to try it out, while listening to these tones without any meditational background, it probably wouldn't work so well. You have to be good at getting into a deep meditational state before you start using these tones. If you're serious about trying these and experiencing these effects, it's almost crucial that you learn to meditate on your own first. Get really good at it.
Social psychology often looks at the basic human need to fit in and calls this the normative social influence. When we grow up, our moral and ethical compass is almost entirely forged by our environment, so our actions are often a result of the validation we get from society. But new developments in neuroscience are giving us a better understanding of culture and identity. Recent neurological research has confirmed the existence of empathetic mirror neurons. When we experience an emotion or perform an action, specific neurons fire. But when we observe someone else performing this action, or when we imagine it, many of the same neurons will fire again, as if we were performing the action ourselves. These empathy neurons connect us to other people, allowing us to feel what others feel. And since these neurons respond to our imagination, we can experience emotional feedback from them as if it came from someone else. This system is what allows us to self-reflect. The mirror neuron does not know the difference between it and others, and is the reason why we are so dependent of social validation and why we want to fit in. We are in a constant duality between how we see ourselves and how others see us. This can result in confusion in terms of identity and self-esteem, and brain scans show that we experience these negative emotions even before we are aware of them.
You are experiencing the reality of what is. Move into the present.
We all write the songs. I'm interested in chaos, disorder, especially activities which seem to have no meaning. I believe in a long, prolonged derangement of the senses to attain the unknown.
Suffered from one of the most brutal genocides in all of history and was fueled by the United Nations and the United States funding during the Carter administration.
Ford and Kissinger visited Jakarta, I think it was December 5th. We know that they had requested that Indonesia delay the invasion until after they left because it would be too embarrassing. And within hours, I think, after they left, the invasion took place on December 7th.
What happened on December 7th in 1975 is just one of the great evil deeds of history. Early in the morning, bombs began dropping on Dili. The number of troops that invaded Dili that day almost outnumbered the entire population of the town. And for 2 or 3 weeks, they just killed people. So the Timorese were fleeing into the jungles by the thousands. By late 1977-78, Indonesia set up receiving centers for those Timorese who came out of the jungle waving white flags. Those the Indonesians thought were more educated or who were suspected of belonging to Frelimo or other opposition parties were immediately killed. They took women aside and flew them off to Dili in helicopters for use by the Indonesian soldiers. They killed children and babies. But in those days, their main strategy and their main weapon was starvation.
By 1978, it was approaching really genocidal levels. The church and other sources estimated about 200,000 people killed. The U.S. backed it all the way. The U.S. provided 90% of the arms. Right after the invasion, arms shipments were stepped up. When the Indonesians actually began to run out of arms in 1978, the Carter administration moved in and increased arms sales. And other Western countries did the same. Canada, England, Holland, and everybody who could make a buck was in there trying to make sure they could kill more Timorese.
And I tried hard to be proud of my service, but all I could feel was shame. And racism could no longer mask the reality of the occupation. These were people, these were human beings. I've since been plagued by guilt anytime I see an elderly man, like the one who couldn't walk, who we rolled onto a stretcher and told the Iraqi police to take him away. I feel guilt anytime I see a mother with her children, like the one who cried hysterically and screamed that we are worse than Saddam as we forced her from her home. I feel guilt anytime I see a young girl, like the one I grabbed by the arm and dragged into the street. We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. Racism within the military has long been an important tool to justify the destruction and occupation of another country. It has long been used to justify the killing, subjugation, and torture of another people. Racism is a vital weapon employed by this government. It is a more important weapon than a rifle, a tank, a bomber, or a battleship. It is more destructive than an artillery shell, or a bunker buster, or a Tomahawk missile. While those weapons are created and owned by this government, they are harmless without people willing to use them. Those who send us to war do not have to pull a trigger or lob a mortar round. They do not have to fight the war, they merely have to sell the war. They need a public who is willing to send their soldiers into harm's way. They need soldiers who are willing to kill and be killed without question. They can spend millions on a single bomb, but that bomb only becomes a weapon when the ranks of the military are willing to follow orders to use it. They can send every last soldier anywhere on Earth, but there will only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki, speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization. We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds trying to make a difference. Vanessa Seti, Morgan Geisler, Michelle Quigg, and me. We've raised all the money to come here ourselves, to come 5,000 miles to tell you adults you must change your ways. Coming up here today, I have no hidden agenda. I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for the countless animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go. I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in our ozone. I am afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. I used to go fishing in Vancouver, my home, with my dad, until just a few years ago we found the fish full of cancers. And now we hear of animals and plants going extinct, every day vanishing forever. In my life, I have dreamt of seeing the great herds of wild animals, jungles and rainforests full of birds and butterflies. But now I wonder if they will even exist for my children to see. Did you have to worry of these things when you were my age? All this is happening before our eyes, and yet we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions. I'm only a child, and I don't have all the solutions. But I want you to realize, neither do you. You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up in a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert. If you don't know how to fix it, please stop breaking it. Here, you may be delegates of your governments, business people, organizers, reporters, or politicians, but really, your mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, and all of you are someone's child. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all part of a family, 5 billion strong. In fact, 30 million species strong. And borders and governments will never change that. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together and should act as one single world towards one single goal. In my anger, I am not blind, and in my fear, I am not afraid of telling the world how I feel. In my country, we make so much waste. We buy and throw away, buy and throw away, buy and throw away, and yet northern countries will not share with the needy. Even when we have more than enough, we are afraid to share. We are afraid to let go of some of our wealth. In Canada, we live the privileged life, with plenty of food, water, and shelter. We have watches, bicycles, computers, and television sets. The list could go on for 2 days. 2 days ago, here in Brazil, we were shocked when we spent time with some children living on the streets. This is what one child told us. I wish I was rich. And if I were, I would give all the street children food, clothes, medicines, shelter, and love and affection. If a child on the streets who has nothing is willing to share, why are we who have everything still so greedy? I can't stop thinking that these are children my own age, that it makes a tremendous difference where you are born. That I could be one of those children living in the favelas of Rio. I could be a child starving in Somalia, or a victim of war in the Middle East, or a beggar in India. I am only a child, yet I know with all the money spent on war, was spent on finding environmental answers, ending poverty, and finding treaties, what a wonderful place this earth would be. At school, even in kindergarten, you teach us how to behave in the world. You teach us to not fight with others, to work things out, to respect others, to clean up our mess, not to hurt other creatures, to share, not be greedy. Then why do you go out and do the things you tell us not to do? Do not forget why you are attending these conferences, who you're doing this for. We are your own children. You are deciding what kind of world you're growing up in. Parents should be able to comfort their children by saying, everything's going to be all right. It's not the end of the world, and we're doing the best we can. But I don't think you can say that to us anymore. Are we even on your list of priorities? My dad always says, you are what you do, not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night. You grown-ups say you love us, but I challenge you, please, make your actions reflect your words. Thank you.
And some people couldn't find this in trying to talk to the parents or the so-called other generation, you know, because they have a way of overprotecting their people so much as where they put them in boxes, you know, and they put themselves in boxes, and that's not the right way of living, because younger people, their minds are a little more keener and they can figure this out. So therefore, since they can't get release and respect from the older people, then they go into these other things, and their music gets louder and it gets rebellious because it's starting to form a religion, you know. And because you're not going to find it in church. A lot of kids, you know, don't find nothing in church. I remember when I got thrown out of church because I had the improper clothes on. I had tennis shoes and a suit, and they said, well, that's not proper. So we don't have no money to get anything else. So I just got thrown out of church anyway, and it's nothing but an institution. So they're going to have to find nothing there. And so then it moves on to trying to find yourself, you know. So therefore, you see somebody look maybe kind of freaky or playing very radical, regardless if it's good or bad, you know. And then quite naturally, they take up to this person or these people. It's up to the people to preach the proper thing to them through the music. Well, like I say, I never consider myself even started yet. You know, that's for everybody else to say that you made it and all this. I don't consider I made it. But I do see, you know, influences and all that. And it seems to me that it's just what I said before. It's just they're trying to find their own identification through us sometimes, you know, which is not bad because we don't preach violence or aggression. This is a very good thing to have around. It's better than politics, you know. They look up to us sometimes quicker than they will look up to what the president says, you know. And, you know, like clothes and so forth. Some people just want to wear these clothes, but that's not harmful at all. That's just a person, you know, he's doing his own thing with his clothes and so forth. There's so many things that people just get misunderstood. We're trying to get across communication with the old and young, and I think some of them are finally understanding that part of it. And plus we try to get across laziness on anybody's part, regardless if they're old and young. And that takes a few more, say, a few more songs and a few more gigs to get that across really strong enough. Because like, I used to see a lot of people just sit around, get stoned and not really, all they do is protest and not really try to do anything about it, you know. I said, well, listen, you could be a dishwasher until you finally get yourself together. They said, yeah, but, you know, and all this. They don't want to know about that, you know, so I know where the trouble is. A lot of it's laziness. So then I work towards, you know, so then I experience different things. I go through the hang of myself, and then what I find out, I write to other people because it has nothing to do with aggression or nothing like that anyway. Because that's just nothing but taking 2 steps back, you know. And the other people have to realize this too, or else they're going to be fighting for the rest of their lives.
Totally out of your body, actually going somewhere without taking your body with it, outer space.
Yeah. Where you go when you go? I don't know, man. It seems like a little cinder in space that's just rotating, constantly rotating, and there's these souls on it, and like you're sitting there like as cattle at a water hole. There's no rap actually going on. There's no emotions that are strung out actually, you know. Next thing you know, you'll be drawn to a certain thing, and all of a sudden the light is bright, and you see yourself being the page being turned, and see yourself next to a soldier being cut down. You know, you arrive on a scene as where everything is beautiful, lush green, brighter than day, low air pollution. And like you see a completely crystal scene of a soldier being shot down. All of a sudden you feel yourself helping that soldier up. But not his uniform, but you're feeling yourself helping another vibe, another sense of that soldier. It seems like a soul of it, you know, you're helping it up. And then you whisk back to the water hole or the oasis of the soul. And you're sitting there and you're laughing again or something, eating banana cream pie, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you see, look at yourself down at the left paw of the Sphinx and the tomb of King Blah and his friendly Phaeacians. And that's all-night social workers with mattresses tied around their backs.
Each neuron has a voltage, which can change when ions flow in or out of the cell. Once a neuron's voltage has reached a certain level, it will fire an electrical signal to other cells, which will repeat the process. When many neurons fire at the same time, we can measure these changes in the form of a wave. Brainwaves underpin almost everything going on in our minds, including memory, attention, and even intelligence. As they oscillate at different frequencies, they get classified in bands such as alpha, theta, and gamma. Each are associated with different tasks. Brainwaves allow brain cells to tune into the frequency corresponding to their particular task while ignoring irrelevant signals, similar to how a radio homes in on different waves to pick up radio stations. The transfer of information between neurons becomes optimal when their activity is synchronized. This is the same reason why we experience cognitive dissonance, the frustration caused by simultaneously holding two contradictory ideas. Will is merely the drive to reduce dissonance between each of our active neural circuits. Evolution can be seen as the same process where nature tries to adapt or resonate with its environment. By doing so, it evolved to a point where it became self-aware and began to ponder its own existence. When a person faces the paradox of wanting purpose while thinking that human existence is meaningless, cognitive dissonance occurs. Throughout history, this has led many to reach for spiritual and religious guidance, challenging science as it failed to give answers to existential questions, such as why or what am I?
Everything in the universe is geometric, whether it's people, trees, cats, planets, solar systems, stars, you name it. Anything in the universe can be measured on a geometric scale. Having said that, it's important to note that creation is also geometric. What we're going to be looking at today is the pattern of creation. Essentially what this means is that everything in the universe comes out of this single pattern. I'm not making this up. This single image will change everything. When I mentioned in Lesson 5 that the ancient Egyptians and even more ancient civilizations knew about a deeper, basic understanding of the universe, this is the flower of life, and it is also the creation pattern of everything in existence. Even non-tangible things, emotions, thoughts, music in its entire spectrum, everything comes from this image. Okay, so there are 13 information systems that comes out of the flower of life. Today, I'm going to show you how physical reality can manifest itself, which is just one of the 13 systems. In future lessons, we will look at more. It's also important to note that at first it may not make sense. I ask that you do not choose immediately to shut this out, and just watch with an open mind, and try and see this in a new way. Also, I want to tell you that by learning about sacred geometry simply by observing, you are absorbing only a very minuscule amount of information. If you really want to learn more, you must begin to draw it yourself. I kid you not, when you do this, you begin to see things in a new way. You begin to understand why things are done in the way that they are done. Promise. The flower of life was known around the world in ancient times. It was found in Ireland, Turkey, Israel, Egypt, China, Greece, Germany, India, and Iceland. It's also been recorded to have been found in England, Tibet, Japan, Sweden, Lapland, the Yucatan, and I think 14 other places. This thing is everywhere. Not only that, but everywhere around the world it has the same name, the flower of life. Now, to understand the flower of life, first we have to talk about how it's formed. This could get incredibly complex, so I'll try and keep it simple. Imagine consciousness, or spirit, floating in a void, which means it's nothingness, and then spirit. No physical body or mind, just spirit, and that's it. Then blackness, essentially nothing, all around the spirit, for infinite. Spirit decides to do something, so it expands its consciousness all around itself as far as it can go without moving. It creates a sphere around itself. This is the first circle in the flower of life. Then, spirit has an awareness of what's around itself in 360 degrees. It moves to the very edge of the sphere, anywhere, and repeats what it did the first time. It creates this image, which also creates the Vesica Pisces. Within the Vesica Pisces is a vast and incredible amount of knowledge about width, proportion, depth. Also comes the square roots of 2, 3, and 5, which are all numbers that go on forever. But even more interestingly, comes geometric information about light. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, spirit has no choice but to do it again. Spirit is flawless, and therefore it will move flawlessly, creating the next circle either here or here, exactly one radius away from the other circle next to it. Every time spirit moves another sphere, more and more knowledge comes out of the image that is created. The first complete image to be formed is this. It has two names, the seed of life, or the Genesis pattern, and for good reason. Now, let's look at the book of Genesis for a second. Each of these movements, or creations of circles, can be seen as another day. On the first movement, the second sphere, it created knowledge about not only mathematical proportions, but light. The first sentence of Genesis says, "The earth was without form and void, and that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." In the very next sentence, God says, "Let there be light." The key here is in the order. The movement happened first, then light happened immediately after. Well, but what about the waters? Well, you have to remember, the Bible has been changed over time a lot. The ancient Egyptians would say that the way our modern Bibles begin creation is impossible, especially if you think about it from a physics point of view. Imagine a dark, infinite space that goes on forever and ever in all directions. You're just floating there with nothing. You can't really fall, but where would you fall to? From a purely physics or mathematical point of view, motion itself, or kinetic energy, is absolutely impossible in a void. You can't even rotate, because motion cannot become real unless there's one other object in the space around you. So the ancient Egyptians would say that before God moved upon the face of the waters, it would first have to create something to move relative to. So, Genesis pattern, after 3 spheres, you get the Holy Trinity. Another interesting one, it says in many Bibles of the world, not just the Christian Bible, that on the 4th day of Genesis, exactly 1/2 of creation was completed. Starting from the first motion, exactly 1/2 of the circles were formed on the 4th day. 5th day of Genesis, 6th circle, more information, and then on the 6th day, a geometric miracle takes place. The last circle forms a complete 6-petaled flower. This is what many earlier Bibles meant when they said, "In the beginning there were 6." Our Bible even said creation was formed in 6 days, and this fits exactly. This is the pattern of Genesis, and so it's called the Genesis pattern. It's also the beginning of the creation of the universe that we live in. These original movements of spirit are really important, but now let's look at something even cooler. Another image that comes out of this pattern is this. It's called the Tree of Life. Many may recognize this as the Jewish or Hebrew Kabbalah, but the Kabbalah did not originate this image, and there is proof. The Tree of Life does not belong to any culture, not even the Egyptians, who carved the Tree of Life on 2 sets of 3 pillars at Karnak Temple, Luxor, over 5,000 years ago. It's outside any race or religion, as with all of these images. They are patterns that are intimately connected with nature. You'll also notice that every circle on the Tree of Life is either the length or width of the Vesica Pisces. The second image beyond Genesis in the Flower of Life is the Egg of Life. This is formed during the second vortex motion. Upon its completion, it creates an image like this, a 3-dimensional shape that you can hold in your hand. If you were to connect their centers, you would see a cube. So what? Who cares? Well, the ancient Egyptians did, because they were concerned with creation, life, and death. They called this cluster of spheres the Egg of Life. You probably won't believe me just yet, but this shape is the morphogenic structure that created your body. Your entire physical existence is dependent on the Egg of Life structure, and everything about you was created from that form. Everything from your eye color to how long your fingers are. This is a whole lesson on its own, so let's move on for now. All around the world, the Flower of Life was always made the exact same way. See, this pattern can clearly go on forever. However, they always stopped after 19 circles. Why? Well, because they didn't want you to see what I'm about to show you. Back then, this image and knowledge was so sacred that they couldn't allow it to become common knowledge. It was appropriate at that time. However, now we either use the information or fall further into darkness. In biology, all cells have a zona pellucida around the edge. These circles around the Flower of Life are the zona pellucida of the Flower of Life. You must remove these, then complete the spheres that were cut off by the zona pellucida. With one more step, you will have the secret. Finish the drawing, add the final missing circles, giving you this. This image is the fruit of life. This pattern of 13 circles is one of the holiest, most sacred forms in existence. It's called the fruit because it is the result, the fruit, from which the fabric of the details of the reality were created. Remember when we talked about male and female energy, lesson 4? As you can see, this image is female. It has no straight lines. However, when you combine male lines with these female circles, something amazing happens. What you do is draw a straight line from the very center of every single circle to every other circle in this image. When you do this, you get an image which is known throughout the universe, everywhere, as Metatron's cube. It is one of the most important informational systems in the universe, one of the basic creation patterns in existence. So what is Metatron's cube? Well, anyone who has studied sacred geometry, or even regular geometry for that matter, knows that there are 5 unique shapes in the universe, and that they are crucial to understanding both regular and sacred geometry. They are called the Platonic solids. A Platonic solid has certain characteristics by definition. First of all of its faces are the same size. For example, a cube, the most well-known Platonic solid, has a square on every face, so all of its faces are the same size. Secondly, the edges of the Platonic solids are all the same length. All edges of the cube are the same length. Third, it only has one size of interior angles between the faces. In the case of the cube, this angle is 90 degrees. And fourth, when put inside of a sphere, all of the points will touch the edge of the sphere perfectly. With that definition, there are only 4 shapes besides the cube that fit that description. So what are they? Well, we have the dodecahedron, the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the isosahedron, and the hexahedron. All of these shapes are found within Metatron's cube. This knowledge is also where original alchemy came from. The ancient alchemists and great souls like Pythagoras, father of Greece, considered each shape to have an elemental aspect to them. The tetrahedron was considered fire, the cube was earth, the octahedron was air, the isosahedron was water, and the dodecahedron was ether. Ether, also known as prana, and tachyon energy are all the same thing. They extend anywhere and are accessible at any point in space, time, and dimension. This is the great secret of zero-point technology. The sphere is voidness. These 6 elements are the building blocks of the universe, and they create the qualities of the universe. To summarize, this is the first informational system that comes out of the fruit of life through Metatron's cube. In alchemy, they rarely discussed ether. I've read that in the Pythagorean school, if you even uttered the word dodecahedron outside of the school, they would kill you on the spot. That's how sacred this shape was. 200 years later, when Plato was alive, he would discuss it, but only very carefully. This is because the dodecahedron is near the outer edge in your energy field, and is the highest form of consciousness. There's quite a bit more here, but I don't think I can go much further on it right now. Anyways, recognize this? The periodic table of elements? Every single element on this table has a geometric relation to one of these 5 shapes. Modern scholars ridiculed this idea until the 1980s, when Professor Robert Moon at the University of Chicago demonstrated that the entire periodic table of elements, literally everything in the physical world, is based on these same 5 forms. In fact, throughout modern physics, chemistry, and biology, the sacred geometric patterns of creation are being rediscovered. Another example is the egg of life that I showed you earlier. Hopefully that will help you to understand just how incredible and important of a discovery this truly is. Everything that modern science knows about the elements and reality are tied together through the Platonic solids, which come out of Metatron's cube, which is formed out of the fruit of life, which comes from the flower of life, which is made by spirit. Damn. Whether you're convinced yet or not, this is the missing piece of the puzzle. It all comes down to spirit. Don't forget, this is just one of 13 informational systems that created the universe.
We traditionally associate the notion of an arrow of time with the sequence of events that we experience through the arrangement of short-term and long-term memories. We can only have memories about the past, and not about the future, and we've always assumed that this reflects the flow of time. Scientists only began to question this logic when discoveries in quantum mechanics demonstrated that some phenomena are not bound by our notion of time, and that our concept of it is nothing more than our perception of the change in observable values. This is also reflected in time dilation and length contraction, which are part of the reason why Einstein established that time and space are the same fabric. In an absolute sense, the notion of time does not differ from the notion of distance. Seconds are equal to light seconds, but cancel each other out. To clarify, with distance and time being each other's opposites, the passing of time can be interpreted as the distance that the hands of a clock travel as they move in a direction that is opposite to time. As they move forward in distance, they effectively travel backwards in what we would call time. This is also why any single separate minimum unit of experience is always instantly annihilated within a timeless now. This understanding sets the record straight between wave function collapse and quantum decoherence. concepts such as life and death are mere intellectual constructs, and any speculative spiritual ideas of an afterlife that takes place in a realm where the rigid mathematical underpinnings of this reality come to an end are equally fabricated. An important cosmological consequence is that the Big Bang Theory, where the universe is traced back to one point by looking at the past, is a misconception. The traditional assumption of space-time, where space is three-dimensional and time plays the role of a fourth dimension, is inaccurate. If we would want to study the origin of the universe, we would actually have to look forward, since C's time vector direction is opposite to the arrow of distance, from which we perceive an expanding universe. Although this temporal mapping of the universe will only yield abstract concepts with no relation to its quantum underpinnings. Experimental evidence includes the accelerating expanding universe, following what is known to be an inverse or time-reversed black hole metric, as well as the many problems related to the Big Bang Theory, such as the horizon problem.
And what, in your opinion, is the future of pop music?
Well, I don't like the word pop in the first place.
Well, okay.
All it means
Rock.
to me is pilgrimage of peace.
Okay. Well, we'll get down. Okay, what do you think the sound of the future will be then?
Well, I don't know. I'm not the critic. You know, I can just only go by what I want on my own side. I like to get into more symphonic things, so then kids can respect the old music, traditional, you know, like classics. I like to mix that in with, you know, with so-called rock today. But it's always changing according to the attitude of the people, you know. When the air is static, loud, and aggressive, that's how the music gets. When the air starts getting peaceful and harmonic and so forth, that's how the music will get. So it's up to the people how it's going to be. But music is going to be here regardless if it's rock or whatever, you know. And it's going to influence a whole lot of people's minds now, because like I said before, that's part of their church now.
Yeah, they also say that of all the money, they took the money that they spent on defense for 2 years and put it in medicine, medical research, that they could cure every possible known disease to man.
Well, how come they don't do those things?
They don't do it.
Okay, well there you go.
Well, I have friends who are doctors, you know, bitch. They say there's no money. This is the only reason why disease is not cured.
Well, that's what they do. They choke their own selves. They get so greedy with money that they don't want to give it up, you know.
Yeah.
That's silly. That's just nothing but a drug just like anything else. Matter of fact, it's one of the worst drugs. That's why I'm glad I just smoked.
Well, this is cancer or anything. They said if just enough money were put into it, they would be able to afford, because they've got the brain power. They've got
definitely.
people. They starve people to death that are educators and researchers. They could do the work for them, you know.
Silly.
They don't give them enough money to do it.
Well, all this is part
It's
of...
not because I'm screaming because teachers don't get any money. That's not true. It's medical research and stuff like this. Stuff like what you're talking about.
I can dig that.
It's really a shame. Of course, they're afraid to cure disease completely. You know, you've got to. The earth would become overpopulated, I guess.
No, they got ways
they
of
feel
straightening
this
that
way
out.
in these stories. They have these theories. Well, they aren't theories, but they
should legalize
feel
abortion.
that this is a natural thing, and that just like they worry about the birth rate, and they worry about. They feel that war is a good thing because it does kill off a number of people,
other
which
ways.
is a drag. I don't believe that.
There's other ways you can settle things. There's other ways how you can live. It's so block-minded. That's all part of the evolution. See, evolution of the man is changing the brain. So quite naturally you're going to have hang-ups here and there of thought, you know. But still, the whole past is going towards a higher way of thinking, you know, towards a clearer way of thinking. But there are still some hardheads, just like you're talking about, that think this way because they don't give their cells a chance to develop in the brain, or let the souls develop, or their emotions, you know. That's what we're trying to stop from other people, regardless of how old you are, regardless of what age thing. You always have to have that release period, that other side of you, you know, the creative side, regardless of what your gig might be. And pretty soon your job is going to start to be not play, but it's going to start to be more enjoyable too. And therefore, plus, you know, all this overpopulation. Well, this is a modern age, and they do have pills for this and pills for that. Just make sure those pills are proper, because some of those pills make people sick. You know, you get after effect, and some of these girls get very sick trying not to have babies. And who says that it's written that people are supposed to, that it's a sin to what they call kill off a child? So a child isn't a child until he comes out into the air. I don't think so. The rest of, they have to think in a higher range of thinking. A lot of young people are, and they're gonna get together. Because a lot of these old people, all they're trying to do, they want to make themselves old, so they tie up their brains like this, and then in the process, they try to build their own heavens. They want to be written down in war history. They want to be written down in money history, all these things. And those things are nothing but jokes. In the next few years, they're going to all be jokes. And those people are going to be jokes.
told you not to wander around in the dark. I told you about the souls and they're living apart. And I told you about a kid, now it's married to me. She cried on me her lap till she fell over me.
Soittaa omiin biisiin enemmän esimerkiksi Planet Funfunista 20. päivänä.
Hey, Moody. I kind of realized that that everything about me is a fraud and a fake, and it doesn't exist. And I've realized this very much in your presence, where there's this burning and there's this discomfort, and I've realized that I don't exist. And no matter what I do to try and create this Dennis, it just doesn't work, you know? There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there.
What? You've gotten rid of Dennis the Menace? And where is this laughing coming from then?
I better stop. Everything's shaking and laughing, you know. So it's just seeing that is all. So that's my report to you.
Yes, and many people want to know what it means if you say, I, Dennis, don't exist. Because if you say this anywhere else, they'll lock you up. Arunachala is a special place. Because you can say things like this and you're in good company. So, this is a secret you will leave here. you, you don't tell your boss. I don't exist. Then he will tell you your wages don't exist. Oh dear. How can we carry on after this? You better go back to your seat.